Here's approximately 42 reasons, in no particular order, of why you should be playing Guild Wars 2. That's it. That's the intro. Nothing else. Here we go. First, we have mounts in Guild Wars 2. Mounts in this game are the best in any MMORPG out there. Perfect. Seriously, they have all sorts of movement capabilities. They allow you to traverse great distances. They allow you to fly. And then on top of that, they have weighted movement. So it's not just, okay, I can pivot on a 360-degree angle. No, my mount is a living creature in my mind. And not only that, you can instantly mount up. There's no cast time. Looking at you, wow. Next, fluid combat. Without a doubt, Guild Wars 2 has some of the best moving combat in any MMORPG. Not only does it take a AoE kind of let's hit everything in this general area feel to it, but it doesn't make it overly punishing if you're not necessarily targeting the character or the mob that you're trying to attack. You could just hammer away, you could slice away, and you're gonna hit something. Masteries are a way to continue growing your character's power even after you've hit max level. Think of it like Diablo 3's Paragon system, where you can grow your character's strength over time. Except in here, you're not growing strength, you're just improving quality of life items, such as improving some of your mount capabilities, like I mentioned earlier. Or you could even improve some of the looting capabilities. You can unlock new features. You can unlock all sorts of these little things just by playing the game in those specific areas. And then on top of that, you have to do a little treasure hunt to find the mastery points to purchase them. So it's pretty cool. Nice. So I'm either going to get a lot of hate or a lot of love for this, but jumping puzzles. Guild Wars 2 is noted for having some of the best jumping puzzles in any MMO out there. This was the first time I've ever experienced a jumping puzzle, and it was a blast. I had a great time until I found this one, which is the not-so-secret Aetherblade Hide. I hated that one. I lost 3 hours of my life. But once you actually finish it, it is a pretty good feeling. Next is elite specializations. Have you ever wanted to take your character and slightly change it so it matches a little bit of a different feel, has a different playstyle? Well, guess what? Hold up. The elite specializations that are tied to each one of the major expansions offer a different way to customize your character to allow them to play a bit differently. Such as my catalyst that creates combo fields as well as auras, I could switch and become a weaver and mix 2 elements together to get a unique attack. That's pretty cool.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
If none of that really catches your eye, how about achievement hunting? You can find little niche achievements that are difficult and almost, in a sense, secret to find and to achieve and work on those. And then again, most of the progress that you make is made account Y, which is pretty awesome. Horizontal progression is probably one of the best features about Guild Wars 2. This takes your infinitely scaling power levels, which you'll see in, again, World of Warcraft or in, say, like Diablo, and nixes it. Essentially, once you earn a good piece of gear or achieve something on your character, you're good to go. Your character will no longer need to purchase any other types of gear because that one will remain relevant forever, essentially. Which takes me to legendary gear, which is a long time effort. You have to put in a lot of work to go ahead and get these unlocked. But once you have them unlocked, they essentially become the only other piece of gear you'll ever need. You could change the stats individually to fit whatever you want to. You can remove things and add them back in without any penalty. You could change the look of the gear without any recourse. All of my characters who have access to a rifle will be able to get this in-game. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
One of the best ways to really get enthralled into an MMO or an RPG is to have some type of intrinsic tie. And one of the best things about Guild Wars 2 is that you have a personal story. The first 80 levels is basically you traversing your way through the core story. I am a god! And each one of the choices that you make offers a different take, a unique style onto the game. And that's not even talking about your racial choices, which I'll talk about that later. So probably the biggest archetype in basically every fantasy world is dragons. This game has a crapload of dragons. And not only are they fearsome, they are eaters of worlds, basically. They are massive. These things completely dwarf your character in every way, shape, or form. It almost makes it feel like it's insurmountable odds that you're against. It's incredible.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
Playing Guild Wars 2 will allow you to hate this character here, Braum. That's it. That's the point. Everyone hates Braum, and it's a fun community thing. It really brings people together. A part of the Heart of Thorns expansion, you get to glide in this game. Essentially, you could just whip that glider out at any point and save yourself from a fall, or you can glide from point A to point B as long as it's kind of below you, and you'll be good to go. Really adds a unique feel to movement and exploration. It's actually one of the best features of Heart of Thorns. Combos in this game are almost like a hidden feature that a lot of people tend to forget, but it is without a doubt one of the most satisfying things to do in game, especially when you plan and execute what you need to do. So essentially laying down a combo field, which some of your abilities will indicate that what a combo field is, and then performing a finisher over top of it will have some type of extra effect. So if I lay down a fire field and then I go ahead and use a blast finisher, it'll grant area might, which improves damage to everyone around me. That's pretty cool. And guess what? It's a part of combat, so you're just going about doing it. Speaking of weapons and how you flow in combat, the best part of the weapons in this game is that each weapon has unique skills and abilities. For example, if you use a greatsword, you're going to have vastly different abilities versus if you switched over to using a two-handed hammer. It's not like other MMOs where you just have your one attack and it doesn't matter which weapon you're using. In this game, every weapon has a unique set of skills, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses, which is awesome. So maybe all the combat and all the frothing, raging all around isn't your style. Here we have gathering. So as you're traversing the world, there are tons and millions of these nodes that are everywhere, where you can just go and mine, you can harvest, you can chop down, you can do whatever you need to. And that every piece of material that you get can either be stored for future use, or even in that sense, you could just turn around and sell it. I mean, there's so many capabilities with all of the crafting materials that you get that it kind of, you're losing money, you're losing gold if you're not gathering. Coming back to the whole idea of being a frothing berserker, build crafting in Guild Wars 2 is one of the, we'll say, endgame fun bits, where you get to customize and change out your build and your specific loadout in combat to see how well they do. And there are millions of different variations of builds that you can use, not only featuring the elite specializations, but between the core, between the utility skills that you use, between the weapons that you choose. I mean, there's so many different combinations that go into it that it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of theory crafting that goes into it, and it's one of the best parts of the game. Speaking of perfecting your build, we have player versus player.
I'm out, man.
Now, structured player versus player in Guild Wars 2 is one of the best ever implemented in MMOs because your gear does not matter. You could be a level 2 Elementalist and enter into PvP and be at the same stat levels and almost on the same playing field as other players who've been playing the game forever. That's because all the gear is normalized and all of your stat choices are selected through this particular amulet. And then from there, you can build your character how you want to, and essentially go out there and play. And also you can use this as a method to level up. You'll be getting tomes of knowledge which grant you a level as you go through. So there's really no reason not to try PvP. Maybe that doesn't really interest you. You worked hard for your gear and you don't want it to be just completely nullified. Well, world versus world is your tape. So world versus world is the Wild West of PvP. Essentially, any time that you come across a character, an enemy player, it's a chance to throw down. And on top of that, you can get overrun by throngs of enemies just who are all trying to destroy your keep and capture it, or in that sense, who are trying to just eliminate you so they get more points for their team. It's a lot of fun. It's such a dynamic game mode, and it's seeing a lot of attention. It's really, really cool. Highly recommend.
Wow.
Oh, also, Twitch drops. Twitch frequently offers in-game drops for just watching Guild Wars 2 content creators and streamers, mainly on Twitch. They don't do anything for me over here on YouTube. But over on Twitch, you'll be able to get free in-game loot and just it's amazing. Like, it's free. One of the pivotal corners of this damn game is the community. The community is without a doubt one of the best in any MMORPG out there. The second that you have any problem in game, all you have to say is, hey, I'm having an issue with this. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a mess of people saying, hey, you know, where are you? Invite me to party. Let's handle this. Let's go do this together. And it's one of the best features, if not one of the most like humbling, because no matter what problem you're having, what issue you have, or you're working through, there's usually someone who's willing to help you. Scaling back to lore, the lore of the game is deep. There's so much lore tied to this game intrinsically that you don't necessarily even really have to know to understand what we're doing. And the best part about it is that if you want to, there is such a deep dive of all these different characters, of these stories, of these plots that really flow all together pretty darn well. And on top of that, the whole story of Guild Wars 1, which was this action RPG, this party-based action RPG, not too long ago, about, oh god, it's been 20 years, I don't know. It's been a while. But the best part about it is that you can choose to read into it and find out if you really are enthralled, or you can skip it and not be penalized. Jumping back to weapon swapping. Weapon swapping is one of the coolest features as far as combat is concerned in this game. Now, for the most part, everyone gets an additional weapon slot, except for the engineer and the elementalist. The engineer usually compensates this by having weapon kits where they can swap into the weapon kits and have new abilities to use. The elementalist has up to 20 skills that they can utilize because they attune to different elements as they are going through their combat. Everyone else gets 2 sets of weapon. So you can have a sword and shield on your warrior and then swap to a longbow to hit at great range. And it's fluid. You have about a 10-second cooldown in between weapon swapping, but it's still one of the best features in the game because it just feels like you're putting these combos together like perfectly. It's such a great feeling. Worried that this game might give you a little bit of a run for your money? Not in this case. So there is an in-game shop. However, you're playing a game where you buy once, play forever. I'll cover that here in a minute. But the best part about it is that the in-game currency that you can earn, gold, can then be transferred into gems, which is the in-shop currency. And then you can use the gems to just purchase whatever, which is one of the coolest features in this game, because especially if you know how to play the market and you know what to farm and you can do all these different things, you could save up a bunch of gems and then just purchase the fancy cosmetics or the quality of life items that you want without penalty. That's awesome.
All right.
Speaking of that buy once, play forever, Guild Wars 2 model is a non-sub base. They emphasize the cash shop, however. I would not make that a negative reason. You purchase the game, you spend $100+ on all the expansions and the core and everything that goes along with it, and you're good to go. The whole game is your cake. Go eat your cake.
Yeah, boy.
Like, that's the best part about this game, is that you can essentially just play this game and put us in as many hours as you possibly can, or as much as you want, and essentially you're good to go. That's the trade-off. So you have to look at it in that sense. Instead of it just being a $30 game that it's like, okay, I played it for a couple of hours, I beat it, and then I left. There's so much to do in this game that essentially you can just go crazy, go wild. And on top of this buy once, play forever kind of mentality, the game is growing. There are more and more players coming back to this game because they realize what type of value they're getting. That money that they put into the game isn't necessarily devaluing. If you look at, say, like, I pick on World of Warcraft because that's where I have most of my experience, you purchase all these expansions, you worked your butt off for the gear at the time, and then that's it. You got to buy a new expansion and restart the cycle all over. Guild Wars 2 doesn't have that, and a lot of players are starting to realize that this game is so good for those who really don't have a whole lot of time to play. You can essentially log in, do what you need to, and then log out, and you're not missing anything, which is one of the best features in this game, without a doubt. Oh, but Caffeinated, what happens if I can't join in when people are playing? That's another beautiful thing about this game.
Got no friends!
Is that essentially you can play solo, or you can play in a group, and both are completely valid. For the most part, even on like my streams, I play by myself. Like, I might have a couple of viewers come in and join me and play like that. But, throughout the week, I won't party up with anyone unless I'm doing a specific in-game instance. But even at that point, the way that I'm playing Guild Wars 2 is that essentially I'm just out there doing my thing. And what's cool about it is that you don't necessarily need to even party up for everyone to get credit. As long as you were there participating in the fight or the event or anything like that in open world,
The gang's all here.
you got credit. You don't need to even really converse with anyone if you don't want to. I always implore, do reach out, because again, the community is fantastic. Just ask them how they're doing. Speaking of those types of events, Meta events are probably one of the keystone parts of the exploration of Guild Wars 2. Meta events are these real-time events that occur on a periodic schedule or until certain criteria has been met. Now, these can scale from little small events like follow this guy over here and make sure he gets there safe, to map-wide metas that where essentially the whole map is leading up to this one particular fight, which is, it's an epic feeling. But again, all of these metas really just kind of build out and flesh out the entire world, because every map has some type of meta event that's tied to it, whether it be big or small, and it's just a really cool feature to just stumble across when you're running through the game. But that doesn't pique your interest? How about some fishing? Yes, Guild Wars 2 has fishing. The End of Dragons expansion allows you to just relax and fish on your boat, and you don't have to worry about anything. Let the world just fade away and catch a 20-pound lunker. Maybe fishing isn't the way that you relax. How about dressing up your character to make them either look like a total badass or a beacon of holy light? The fashion in this game is such a big deal, and trust me, and I will say this, I still haven't got it completely right. I think I do, but then I'm told that I don't know. Matching has never been really my thing. But I will say that the fashion in this game and the different collectibles, the different weapon skins, the armor skins, the extra effects through, say, legendary items, there's so much that you can do that isn't necessarily just combat oriented or endgame oriented. You can essentially just focus on that, and that's a complete pillar of the game, because a lot of people really like dressing up their characters. But what happens if all I want to do is just make my gear? Do they have a good in-game crafting system? Yes, kind of. So for the most part, the crafting in Guild Wars 2 is kind of unique, because the way that you level up is by discovering new recipes and putting things in together. So it takes a little bit of exploration while you were doing that. It's a little odd because you have to talk to a crafting master. I never really got that one right. And he's just like, go, be free, do it yourself. That doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not gonna pick here. But without a doubt, every piece of gear that you craft through there can either be utilized by, say, one of your characters, or you can just turn around and sell it on the trading post and make some profit off of it, or at least make some of your money back. Crafting, leveling it specifically, does usually take quite a bit of gold. However, once you get up into the higher ends of crafting, even if you don't need the gear anymore, there's usually some use for it down the line. Specifically for legendary crafting, which usually has you craft these, we'll say, high-level components that require high-level crafting. So it kind of makes sense that the effort that you're putting in now doesn't necessarily go to waste. One of the best features that I had ever seen in World of Warcraft, and I really wish that they kept along with it, was back in Wrath of the Lich King, where they had single instance boss fights, where the whole instance was focused just on one boss fight. That was such a cool feature because it was easy to just pop in, let's do this one boss and move on. Guild Wars 2 has that, and those are called strike missions. Essentially, strike missions are individual one-boss encounters where you and your 9 other compatriots will go in there and try to defeat this boss, who usually has some type of unique combat features, has mechanics. You have to have a certain build to perform your role. It's really where the end game, we'll say PvE, is focusing on for Guild Wars 2. So if you like those, that's going to happen. Stay with it. Because the expansion announcement in Secrets of the Obscure. So Guild Wars 2 announced that they were releasing a brand new expansion, which is going to be completely away from the whole Dragon saga and the Dragon cycle, we'll say, story arc. It's a brand new story, it's a brand new take with hundreds of brand new features.
Hold up.
Actually, there's just about a couple, but they're really, really big. Specifically, the Weapon Master, the open world legendary, or the streamlined sky scale. I mean, really, any way you cut that, that's pretty awesome. But the game is growing because the developer has started to have more focus just on Guild Wars 2. NCSoft has tried a bunch of different, we'll say, ventures, and has kind of left ArenaNet on life support, basically.
How dare you!
And after those ventures didn't go anywhere, and Guild Wars 2 is still going and still thriving, they said, maybe we should pay attention to this. So NCSoft is now backing ArenaNet, and ArenaNet is focusing purely on Guild Wars 2 and building this game up further. Now, again, it's a 10-year-old game, but it is still thriving. It is still doing such a good job, and it's growing now as we speak. So that's awesome. But what do I do if I want some challenging content? If I want something that's really, really taxing? So those strike missions that I had mentioned have challenge modes, and some fractals do as well. Essentially, you need to have perfect mechanics, the perfect build, and play everything right to beat this encounter. And not only that, you have to have all of your 9 other compatriots who are in your squad to perform their abilities and their roles perfectly as well. And it's one of the most challenging pieces of endgame content in Guild Wars 2 right now. Yeah, but that doesn't interest me. I just want to go and level an alt and, you know, play with that occasionally. Well, Guild Wars 2 is incredibly alt friendly.
Another one. Another one.
Because of the idea of horizontal progression, where essentially you don't have to really progress any further once you get a particular piece of gear, once that character has that gear again, they're good to go. And the best part being is that exotic gear, which is the tier directly below Ascended and Legendary as far as stat-wise is concerned, is very minimal difference. And that's the best part, is that you can gear up your alt with these specific, we'll say, exotic pieces of gear and be able to perform perfectly and not really have any major issues. And that's the beautiful part of this game, is that your alt can just jump in as soon as they're level 80 and they have the gear, good to go. Which kind of ties into the whole idea of account-wide progress. And now a number of the features that I had mentioned, say like masteries, achievement hunting, unlocking mounts, and legendary gear, are account-wide. Once you earn that piece of content, we'll say, on one of your characters, it's available for all of your characters all across the board. That doesn't make you have to go back and redo everything just to get that particular, we'll say, mount on that particular character. No. And once you created an alt after you've unlocked all the mounts, that alt can use all of the mounts. It's incredibly fun. It's incredibly great for those who just like to have those kind of like split personalities. I want to go off and try all these different things. But what about the races in Guild Wars 2? Guild Wars 2 did it right. The races don't have an inherent advantage over one another, so you wouldn't pick a Char because the Char deals more damage than, say, a Sylvari. However, each one of the races that you choose each have a different, we'll say, approach to the game. Their personal story is different, their voice lines are different, where they start is different, and essentially they only have a handful of skills that are tied to their specific race. However, they usually are less powerful than their, we'll say, profession or their elite specialization choices. So you can use it for more RP sense, but you don't really have to, because, well, your character, no matter which race you choose, is going to be able to perform the same way as any of the other races. It's purely, in my opinion, for aesthetics. You choose which one you think is looks the coolest. But I want to get my alt all the way up to max level super duper fast. Well, let me tell you what. They have recently streamlined the leveling experience in Guild Wars 2. Not only do you have a whole bunch of boosters that you can buy, there's guild boosters that are a part of like increasing the amount of experience that you gain, but the best part is that they've added in the character adventure journal, which essentially allows you to speed run all of the leveling without really any issue. It's fantastic. You get extra experience for just doing basic things that you were doing anyway. So it makes that gap in that core story a little bit faster to get to end game. Which, as you've rushed through all of the criteria, why would I want to go back?
How do you do, fellow kids?
As I mentioned with a number of the other features, so like the map-wide meta events or the legendary collections, there's always a reason to go back to each one of these events and these particular maps that you may have already done. There's a reason to go to Queensdale, which is the human starting zone, because you want to take on the Shadow Behemoth, which is a world boss. That's a really cool feature. That provides a specific value to go and spend time in these lower level zones that you've already breezed past. So the replayability in this game is just phenomenal. One of the best in the MMO market. And then on top of that, a really nice feature is the yearly holiday events. Essentially, your yearly holiday events cycle through every year, and there's usually a unique feature with each one of them every single year. There's new content, there's new skins, there's new, we'll say, things that you can earn, and you can just piece it together over the years as you play. Specifically, I love the October one, which is the Shadow of the Mad King, which is without a doubt one of the best events in Guild Wars 2. It's coming up here in about a month, so just pay attention to that. Now, I've only recently dipped my toes into this, but role-playing in this game is actually pretty fun. I actually made a video where I talked about specifically being a thief who is a pirate, using a sword pistol and a pistol offhand and dressing him up like a pirate and, you know, yelling scallywag. However, there's whole communities who develop their time and, you know, their, we'll say, builds and character looks specifically for these reasons. It's good fun. And the last reason is, what is your reason? What is the reason that you play Guild Wars 2 or you be interested in playing Guild Wars 2? Tell me down below. If all this is interesting you, I'll turn your attention to my new player guide to Guild Wars 2 in 2023. This will explain all the basics of the game so that you can get your head wrapped around it and be good to go. Stay caffeinated, folks.